On my second date, he brought me and my mother each a dozen roses and my father a $200 power drill.
Not the typical story of young love.
And I don't know if I loved him in spite of it. Or because of it.
Welcome, my friends, to Cut to Black, a Sopranos Sitdown. Oh, my goodness. My name is Jim Scampoli. I've seen every episode of The Sopranos.
My name's Jacob Burrows, and I've seen 68 episodes of The Sopranos. That's 68 hours of your life you're never going to get back, Jacob, because you spent them watching an amazing show, and then another 68 hours or so discussing it. What good choices we make in life, much like Tony Soprano, or should I say Kevin Finnerty? Oh my God, he's back. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Who made this, though?
This one was written by Matthew Weiner, the creator of Mad Men, also directed by Jack Bender. Originally aired March 26, 2006. I believe I looked up. Let me see. Jack Bender. I don't know if he directed any other episodes. Oh, no, of course he did. Yeah, he directed episodes in season 3 and season 4.
And last week we talked about how we had a Game of Thrones director. This fellow also directed a couple episodes of Game of Thrones, notably The Door, memorable episode, and Blood of My Blood, episodes 5 and 6 of season 6, or yeah, whatever. You know, all these TV people, they all look alike to me. They all direct fantastic shows and make amazing things, and I just talk about them and never make anything. Here we are, season 6.
Well, he makes magic with a door in this episode as well, so I think it was all set up for that Game of Thrones. So there you go.
Makes sense.
Now, before we get into it, I asked you last week if we'd seen the last of Kevin Finnerty, and as you are now aware, we had not seen the last of Kevin Finnerty yet, which is kind of like Infinity, right? Kevin Finnerty.
Don't you even?
Yeah.
Don't even try.
So now, what are your thoughts of seeing more of Kevin Finnerty, even though it's definitely scaled back from in comparison to the previous episode?
I mean, my first reaction was, geez, more with this shit. And maybe it's because of the way they cut it, where it's like Carmilla comes in and sits down, and then it's like slow, and then a cut, and then like, oh, we're going to do this more, huh? It's going to be more of this, a lot more maybe. So I wasn't excited about it because it made sense. Like, looking back on the episode, it makes total sense to me what they did. Especially the bit where he like transitions out into the real world again. That was really nice. But then like having him go to the Buddhists and all this stuff, I was not excited for it. It started feeling more like a dream sequence for the sake of it. But again, made perfect sense in the context of the episode still.
Yes, yeah. I mean, there is a lot in this episode. Yeah, like especially with the monks of, you know, you need to take responsibility. You need to, you know, face the consequences. I mean, they do have a comment of like, you know, when he's saying, I'm not Kevin Finnerty, and they're like, you know, well, who's that tree? You know, we're not anyone in the grand scheme of things, are we? But yeah. I still really love it. I love all the Kevin Finnerty stuff. It is a thing that, talking about like some of the fandom, I know I've been bringing that up here and there. I have seen a lot of people say that they always skip the Kevin Finnerty stuff and they can't stand it or whatever, but I love it. I think it's great.
Last week I loved it, and now I'm like, cool, where's the mob stuff? So I guess I'm transitioning into, we do get a little shitload of mob stuff, to be fair.
It starts off immediately with mob stuff. I kind of feel like
but I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's why I was like, cool, we're back in it, back to mob stuff. I think that was like the sort of ricochet back into Kevin Finnerty, because last time it was like we start with Kevin and we're going through it, and then it's this and it's mob stuff and it's scheming, and I like all that. I even like the Kevin Finnerty stuff, but like the jumping back and forth where like, oh, now I have to care about this metaphor and this conversation that has no relevance to the real world, only to like his psyche and everything. And again, it was actually all fine, but I did have a knee-jerk reaction there of like, all right, Kevin, we're still going on with this?
Now, what about this quote from David Chase where he says that, frankly, I would not call those dreams?
Yeah.
Now, do you, is like, as far as Sopranos and like the spiritual side of Sopranos, does this show kind of take a stance that there is like a purgatory and a heaven and hell? Like, what's your read on that?
You could, though. I think last episode said something similar. I mean, last episode of Cut to Black, I said something like, in these dreams, or I don't know, in this coma state, like, is it, although I was more along the lines of, it's not really a dream because he's not asleep. Like, he's, I would agree with that. And I think the show is kind of doing it. I think it's in his head, but it has, like, the real life is affecting what's happening in there to a degree where I feel like it has more meaning than just any old dream. Do you think that David Chase is saying, yes, this is definitely the space between heaven and hell, or do you think he's just, being David Chase?
I mean, he might not be confirming purgatory, but I do think, at least in the realm of the show, that, yeah, I think spiritually Tony Soprano is somewhere. And at least, like, I don't know if he's in his real life, he thinks that there's heaven and hell and purgatory, but I think in the show that this is more than just a dream.
It's interesting because obviously the show deals a lot with death, but most of it is more along the lines of, like when Polly Walnuts went to the psychic and the psychic knows stuff that he shouldn't know or whatever, and you can kind of explain it away, but the show wants to give you this sense of like, yeah, maybe, like, so this is like an extended version of that in a way, when he keeps seeing Gloria and all, and you can it's left open to interpretation, which I also appreciate, and I feel like David Chase will just say whatever is almost the most controversial or annoying to anyone trying to interpret his work anyway.
This is true.
But yeah, I mean, in my mind, the way I view the world in this show, it is a dream, but it's a different type of dream because it's a coma dream. That's the only extra layer in my mind. And then it's like, yeah, of course, because he's raised Catholic, so heaven and hell.
But I do think, at least from the stance of the show, I feel like in the world of the Sopranos, which is obviously, grounded in very much like our own world, except, you murder people in broad daylight and beat them up and nothing happens to you. But I feel like this show has a stance that hell exists and Tony's going there. And that
Carmilla would disagree.
Well, yeah, well, at least when he's on the cusp, she would disagree. And I feel like this is the universe potentially giving Tony Soprano another chance. And could he learn from this? And maybe will he make changes in his life from here? But I mean, that's yet to be seen. Going back to what I had mentioned last week, that this was inspired by John Patterson, who was one of the main directors. He directed all the finales of The Sopranos before season 6. In between season 5 and season 6, he did pass away.
Yeah.
And I guess it's kind of tied in when he talks about, I frankly would not call those dreams, inspiring many theories about Tony potentially moving through purgatory or some other section of the afterlife. Asks now about those episodes. Chase says, alternate universes. Now, I have no proof. That's what I consider them as an artist. Something spiritual that's happening with Kevin Finnerty. It wasn't the same as in the test stream. The sequence was inspired by Chase's longtime friend, John Patterson, who directed many episodes of the series before dying of cancer in 2005. And at one point in his cancer fight, Patterson found himself in the hospital muttering the same words, "Who am I? Where am I going?" Chase would then put that into the mouth of both Tony and Kevin Finnerty in the alternate reality. The way my mind worked, Chase says, I wondered what he was seeing when he said that line between dream and reality and death and sleep and all that. I'm into that whole thing. So,
yeah.
But you're right. I do feel like he does kind of like to stoke the fires, and I mean, stoke the discussion. I know we've mentioned before that he probably hates the discussion, but I think deep down inside, he loves that we're discussing the Sopranos.
Yeah, I think it might also be, I don't know if it's like a different setting in your brain where maybe it's my worldview or something that lets me not be that interested in dream sequences, because I'm like, that's some bullshit. Like, and the similar, if it's like unclear of whether it's heaven or hell. And again, I did like the last episode a lot, and I was trying to put my finger on it as we were discussing it. It reminds me a bit of like Barton Fink, Coen Brothers in general, but maybe specifically like being trapped in a weird hotel and like you're a different person, and yeah, it's Barton Fink feelings in general. But the real question we have to ask ourselves, Jim, are we calling this Purga theory? The theory that he's in purgatory, or are we calling it Purgatony because it's his own personal purgatory? That's the real question.
I think you could say either one, honestly. So I'm liking Purgatony myself,
Okay.
because it sounds like rigatoni, like food.
Yeah,
Uh,
makes sense. So
sorry,
everyone hashtag in your responses here, hashtag Purgatheory, Purgatony, and Rigatoni at Shows What You Know on Twitter. That's you, the letter U.
I was trying to find, because I like what you're bringing up about like disliking dream sequences, and Chase kind of talks about that a bit.
People who dislike dream sequences are fools who have no bearing on this reality or the next.
Okay, yeah, here it is. This is from David Chase when they're talking about because even Alan Sepinwall asked him, like, there's definitely a segment of the audience who just wants a mob show. They want a whacking of the week, an asshole du jour. Anytime you steered too far away from that, they said, this is not okay. This is not what we signed up for. Even though the very first scene of the show is in a psychiatrist's office now, or psychiatrist's office. Now, I think that's a little bit too dismissive, because I mean, it still is a mob show, and I get there is like an audience for that. But what David Chase says, you know what it must be about the audience resistance to dreams and stuff like that? It's like you're presenting me a fictional world, and I buy into the fictional world. I know it's not real, and now you're telling me that there's a world beyond that. So if I buy into that fictional world, now you're telling me I have to go to some other level. Then it means what's gone before is not real, and I want to think what's gone before is real.
Wow.
So
David Chase should make video essays on YouTube.
Yeah, because he's like, otherwise, what am I watching this for? I've got to believe it. I think that's fair. I mean, he's just kind of saying, yeah, like, because we're already buying into Tony Soprano, and now we have to be like, well, what about Tony's dreams and hopes? And then what about if Tony is someone else? And yeah, we're going Inception layers here, deeper and deeper into the mind of someone who's already fake.
Well, David Chase is a genius, because I've never been able to put my finger on that, and I think it does it exactly of why I don't love a dream sequence, where I'm like, you already sold me on this. I'm in it. I'm believing in it, and then you're like, even in my real life, if I wake up from a dream that's particularly intense and it lingers in my mind, I'm like, why am I feeling this way? I don't understand it. And then you just shove it from your mind, and then it's like, oh no, I need therapy. And that's what you need to explore your own dreams, Jacob. And I'm like, well, I'm having enough problems here in the real world. Like, I'm Tony Soprano heading out in the real world trying to get shit done, and then people are just shooting me, and I have coma dreams. I don't know. Well done, David Chase. That's a great way to describe it. Fuck you.
Yeah, David Chase can lay it all down for you. He does talk a little bit too about how he didn't get why people hated AJ so much, which is fun, because we were just talking about that. But yeah, good stuff. I mean, I guess now we can get into the episode, and like they started out for you, Jacob. They get right into the mob shit. They're not.
All right, I don't want this to perpetuate this myth that I'm like, but where's the mob shit? I do want concrete stuff. I do. Sorry for wanting real people talking to each other and doing things in my shows. But yeah, it does start with that. It starts with Paulie getting some intel that there's a bit of a mob thing they can go and do. And they're like, great, let's go do this mob thing. But there were people there, and they weren't supposed to be there. And then people get shot. Very mob, much enjoy.
Yeah. We have Paulie getting kicked in the balls. And then he's like, yeah, it's pretty brutal, because then he's like stabbing the guy. Like, he's crawling over to him and stabbing him. People are getting shot. Yeah. And then they're like, there's no money here. But nope, there's a bunch of money.
Yeah, that was I believed it. I believed there would be no money. So well done on that. And the whole like, fuck it, let's just go. And then stripping the place down. I really thought that would be the thing you would be mad at Vito for, that there was no money. But then, of course, if there's too much money, that's an easy thing to have a conflict over as well, as the episode shows us.
Yeah, because initially when it was going through, I was thinking that Paulie was like trying to keep it secret, because that's totally what I would expect Paulie to do, to try to like get that money and then be like, there was only like $2,000 there. But then, you know, it becomes apparent that he didn't do that. So I guess I sold Paulie a little bit too short for you know, what the stand-up guy that he actually is.
Yeah, I mean, he does always do that, doesn't he? Whenever someone gives him money to give to someone else, he does give like half, but I guess he would I feel like he would brag about it as well. And there
Yeah.
was this other guy there who I don't remember ever being around, but I guess maybe he's been around for seasons. I don't know, this other guy. But yeah, so they find it, and what else do we have? We have the very next scene. We're back at the hospital. AJ and Meadow show up. AJ gets a talking to. I love the feeling of this talking to. Like,
Yes.
are you rapscallion? Look
I
at
had
you trying to grow up.
I had the same thing in my notes because it's like, it's interesting that this happens off screen too, by the way, because this totally seems like something they would want to spend time on, like showing him like AJ hilariously trying to buy a gun. But yeah, like Chris just ends in like a noogie, like, you trying to kill your uncle.
Yeah. And I it's really kind of interesting that he's like, oh, you put them up to that, didn't you, to Carmilla, where like they would never go to Carmilla with mob shit.
Yeah.
So it's interesting his perspective on like parents keeping things secret when maybe he's not then aware of how much like is actually not known between Carmilla and Tony, that there's a wall there as well, because he just sees the wall to his parents, so he thinks like, yeah, of course she knew.
Yeah, like she found out and was like, "Hey, Chris, go tell AJ not to go buy a gun and kill Uncle Junior, please."
Yeah, she'd tell him herself, I think. But she's preoccupied, watching over Tony. There's some more talking about, he's not out of the woods yet, but some good news, some bad news with this doctor who's sort of portrayed as not having the best bedside manner, as we saw last episode. And Carmilla goes in there, and then we're in Kevin Finnerty's hotel room.
Well, we do see Meadow lay down with Tony in his hospital bed, which we find out later one of the nurses is really annoyed about.
Yeah.
But yeah, then we check back in, and Kevin Finnerty is in the hotel that we last saw him in. He gets a summons and drives out to speak to the monks. And like we said before, there's a lot of like, you need to take responsibility. They're laughing at him when he's saying that he's not Kevin Finnerty, and they're monks, so they're like, who is anyone? Anyone is anyone. It would kind of be perfect if you were a monk. You could take anyone to court and just start hitting them with some philosophy if they try to fight you on it. It is kind of funny that they laugh at him for saying he might be getting Alzheimer's. But again, they mentioned that one day we'll all be the same as Tree. So who are we in the grand scheme of this big world called life?
Yeah, and I mean, they're like, someone has to take responsibility, like you said, and they're like, well, I can't do that. And then but then the lawsuit proceeds, and it's like, yeah, it doesn't really matter. I'm not Kevin Finnerty. But then I suppose all of this is really meant to give him some weird existential wobbliness, even in like he's in a quote dream, and he's questioning this layer of reality as well. Then we are as well. And he's like, am I Kevin Finnerty? At this point, I'm like, he may as well be. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know this guy. Like, whoever he's pretending to be here, maybe he is Kevin Finnerty. So David Chase has a point there about the levels of reality inceptioning down and everything. Because, I mean, it's way later, but we go back and he's like at the bar again going like, what if I am Kevin Finnerty?
Yeah.
And the guy's like, ha, ha, ha.
Yeah, it's like, all right, don't talk to me anymore. Well, and I mean, some other people kind of broke it down too. Like between these two episodes, when he's Kevin Finnerty, there is constant hints that he needs to turn his life around. Like his other Carmilla wife on the phone is telling him, you didn't even want to take this trip, which could be getting shot by Junior. He's too wrapped up in his work. This is partly your fault, they tell him. And of course, the monks keep telling him he needs to take responsibility, face consequences. The doctor in the last episode tells him that he needs to speak to his doctors back home. Could that be Melfi? To discuss these dark areas in your brain. So, yes, you need to get your shit together, Tony Soprano, once you find yourself, and maybe you'll come out on the other side.
speaking of different sides, reality, what is real, what is not. Jim, one thing that is real is our death counter, and before we forget,
Oh, that's right. Jesus, we we totally glossed over that, didn't we?
yeah, it was just a quick 3 deaths, real quick.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how many deaths were there? Was it 3?
Yes, it's the superintendent guy and the 2 Colombian guys.
Oh my
So,
goodness. Yeah, I need to pull my thing up real quick.
yep. See, this is when you get too caught up in dreams, you forget about the important things in life.
Yeah, because
Sound
you can't-
effects.
we've mentioned like the people that are too into like the mob stuff or the whack of the week, but you also can't be too into like, oh, the symbolism. Oh, this is what they mean, or this is the
Jim,
framing. You
Some
got to be
people
both.
listen to some people listen to our podcast and they hear that. I'm just saying.
No,
Judging
absolutely.
by our iTunes review, please do leave a review on iTunes, or sorry, Apple Podcast for Cut to Black. By the way, we'd really appreciate it.
But I'm just saying, you got to be both. You got to be like, hell yeah, shoot them, and then also like, hell, the trees again.
Yeah,
Hold on, my stupid soundboard's not opening. Of course, I got my counters up, but I'm just trying to. The sounds are the most important part.
agreed. They are the most important part.
Okay, yeah,
Let's do-
okay. So you said there's 3.
Yeah,
All right,
Let's
let's
do it.
do it then.
Gazzada malanga. Gazzada malanga. Gazzada malanga.
Why is it so funny? Because now it's different. Now this will propel my amusement with this sound clip for the rest of the show, I would think. Because now I connect it with that moment of him standing there with the gun and no teeth, like oh, so good.
I mean, because we've been using that sound. Because I mean, we didn't have the counters up till maybe season 2, but maybe even by the end of season 1. But it was still a while ago, and I've been relishing, waiting for you to to finally know where it came from, and here we are. Yeah, are we at 60 now on the death counter?
That's right. We hit a round number. Everyone applaud. Just like we're coming up on 1 per episode with these multiple ones. Like, because we're on episode 68, we're at 60 deaths, and I know other counts. Like we every time there's a controversial one, we discuss it and decide what we're doing. So this is our count for how many deaths there are. I'm sure more like characters in general, off screen, people who haven't been in it, whatever, die. But 60 official important show deaths. So that's still a lot of mob stuff in there, everyone.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And 16 on the walkouts if you're keeping track.
That's right. So, well, back to life, back to reality. We have, what do we have? Yeah, well, we have,
Carm runs into Melfi at the
Yes.
grocery store,
yes.
which it's a nice way to kind of keep Melfi involved, and we see it more later in the episode, and plus the clip to open the show. And I'm trying to think if there's anything major here. It's just kind of like, she's heard the news, and Carmela looks frazzled, which is, to be expected. She's been like basically living in the hospital. She has to, I just remembered she does have to go there because AJ didn't pick up coffee. Is that why this happens? Isn't that the thing? And
Yes.
he kind of freaks out about it.
I
But
think
yeah, just kind of,
Silvio at some point is like, oh yeah, send some coffee over, but she's already gotten it herself, I think.
and but she's also putting up the front of like, because I think Melfi's like, oh, if you need anything, you need to talk, and she's like, oh, no, of course not. I got plenty of people to talk to. Don't even worry. Haha. All smiles and walks away. But as we see throughout this episode, this is obviously a big deal, and it's really wearing down poor Carmilla. Which I do. Go ahead. You first.
I was just gonna say that the 2 points of this scene is to introduce like the contact between the 2 of them, so it makes sense when we have the bigger scene later, and also just in general to establish the sort of veneer that she has plastered, like everything's fine, we're gonna be okay veneer over all the fucked up emotions.
And I do want to say, like, not to throw shade on other actresses. Like, I mean, one of the biggest ones that comes to mind is it Anna Gunn that plays Skylar on Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
Because we've brought up the comparison in the past before of when shows like this that have the anti-hero bad guy main character, and then they have like the wife that the audience kind of hates wrongly, like not supporting there. But I feel like the Carmilla character works much better than like the Skylar character, or even on like the Shield there's the Corinne character that's Vic Mackey's wife. And I mean there are other shows like this, but those are like the big ones that come to mind. But mainly because I mean not just Edie Falco, who's great, but like moments like the when she's in with Melfi later on, and there's a little bit more back and forth, I'd say, with Carmela, where she's kind of more culpable. And with like someone like Skylar, which I still think is a fine character, but they lean a little bit too much more into her being like kind of the conscious or the paragon of virtue, even though she still takes like gets involved in some of the more nefarious activities. But I don't know, like I thought between these past few episodes, especially this season, it really kind of solidified the Carmela character as such a stronger, more well-rounded character in this type of show.
Yes, I think weirdly I had a very similar thought of thinking of Breaking Bad while watching this episode, probably because we had some chatter about it on Twitter. If you want to have a discussion with us there on Twitter, please do feel free to tweet at Shows What You Know. That's Shows with a U. Well, no, it's you with a U. Sorry. Jesus Christ. What's going on? Am I awake? Who am I? Where am I going? Where am I going with this? Yeah, so I was also thinking something similar, actually, in that scene. I was like, holy shit, she's killing it. Like, because did I say this last episode, or did I just think this after watching this, that, her back must be real sore from carrying this whole season so far.
Yeah,
like she's doing a fantastic job last episode and this episode. And last week I said like, wait, what awards did she win for this? Because there must have been some. Maybe not as dramatic of a speech there in Melfi's office, but still really, really good stuff, and probably some of the best parts of the episode for sure.
Yeah, and I'm supposed to be a little bit more fair to something like Breaking Bad. There was definitely more opportunities earlier in the Sopranos run where they didn't make a lot of use of Carmela. So, I mean, just to kind of keep it fair for all the fans that think we're like taking shots, or I'm taking shots at Skylar or Breaking Bad, because there's times when I think we're like, what's Carmela doing? What's happening? Oh, yeah, Carmela's back and she loves Furio.
We've talked about that a lot. Like, she's doing this again, huh? Okay, cool. Another season of this.
But yeah. So then we have Silvio. We're at Silvio's house, and he's kind of getting the Tony Soprano treatment, because now we have Silvio's wife answering the door for Benny. Benny's picking him up to be the driver, and Silvio's acting boss. And it's hilarious the way this episode, I mean, because this episode definitely leans a lot into humor with the mob stuff, and it kind of does show that this family, this New Jersey crew, glorified crew, cannot really get along with exist without Tony at the top, Yeah,
it's true. And I mean, it almost makes Vito have a point when he's like, I'm a young guy, like, and I'm healthy, so like if I were to be the new boss, I wouldn't be going anywhere, because that's exactly the problem, that fucking bosses keep dying or getting taken out or comas. So then everything becomes uneasy. And I mean, that's New York as well. Like, that's what causes all of the problems. So you want someone young and healthy, not a Silvio or indeed a Tony. Although Tony did get shot, to be fair, he's not in there for cardiac arrest. But you're right, it is the Tony Soprano treatment. We even visually, like the way we enter the house and Silvio's sitting there eating in his dressing gown. Like, it's more flashy than Tony's dressing gown, but it's the same thing. They have a kitchen island there, and like, she's swanning around, and she gets to talk him up a bit, saying how, like, oh, but what if, God forbid, everyone keeps saying God forbid, because, worst comes to the worst, hey, we got to think about it, we don't want chaos, so maybe you. And Silvio's like, oh, I don't even want to think about it, but, I was actually considered to step up. What's that about, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, I like how the trajectory you feel that's going to happen is that Silvio, I mean, he is giving a faux, like, never thought about it. But the trajectory I expect to happen is that by the end of this episode, Silvio's going to be like, I like this power. Give me all the power. I don't care if Tony Soprano wakes up, but it like goes the other way for him, as we see. But Yeah, and it's not quite Janice with Richie when she's like, you should be the boss, or you're making a garbage man salary after all the stuff you've done. But his wife is pumping him up a little bit, like, God forbid, like, what if, but this is good and you fit the role. And he's saying, oh, I never thought about it, but I don't think he was ever almost bumped up, because at least from what we saw, Tony was always pulling the strings behind the scenes to either take over for Jackie Sr. or what he ended up doing by propping up Uncle Jr. and secretly running things.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, Silvio's correct. He is good at, like, the strategy, behind-the-scenes stuff. Maybe the pressure of being boss isn't something that anyone else realizes yet, which is why, I think Tony gets to have that moment with Johnny Sack when he's like, fucking, can you believe this shit? Like, all the shit we have to deal with, and everyone's always annoyed that they're always complaining. But hey, Silvio, it's not so easy, is it?
Well, and even kind of vindicated, because I think it was like around that same episode with All Due Respect, when Tony had to throw the all due respect back to Silvio of like, hey, it's pretty lonely at the top.
Yeah, it's true. So continuing the comedy of the mob shit, we get to the hospital and Silvio can't, like, breathe because of all the flowers. Paulie wobbles in because he got kicked in the nuts. I mean, it's some real comedic stuff going on. Arguments start cropping up over what are we doing with this money? What are we doing with that? They're basically like squaring it up there, right there. There's this big conflict between Bobby and Vito as well. Because, Bobby and Vito are arguing about Junior's thing, and then there's also the money. And, man, two things at once. I think I'll have an asthma attack.
Well, and it's also a nice reminder, like, for anyone, when tragedy happens to you, it's horrible. Or if you pass away or someone in your family passes away, it's horrible. And you have this extended family that's very concerned. But as people on the outer circle, life has to go on. And, they're even in the hospital just squabbling over other shit, because, maybe it's not that way for someone like AJ or Carmilla because it's so close to them. But for everyone else, business as usual, plus maybe potentially more if, God forbid, Tony doesn't make it out of this. What can I get out of here?
Yeah, exactly. So we do, of course, have Tony back at the bar. As we said, he's wondering what's going on. He sees the beacon there still outside the window, and then AJ's eating pizza. And like we said, Silvio gets ambushed in the bathroom as well. And there's all sorts of strategy going on here. So he has to try to, divvy that up, breaks half and half, and I think Vito comes in like, hey, what about Carmilla? And then, like, that sort of primes it into, oh, yeah, we got to make sure, the Carmilla gets Tony's share, which no one really wants to do.
Yeah. And then I was almost expecting, again, like, something to happen, change with Silvio here, like, of when he, had them steal the tile or whatever it was from the job site. And I don't know if they're just purposely teasing me with that, or I'm just looking for something that's not there. But Silvio's kind of steadfast, at least the whole time, that no, of course, we'll take care of Carmilla. But then, as we see throughout the episode, Vito and Paulie, that starts to become like well, what if Tony dies? What's the point? Why are we taking care of Carmilla? Because, no one's going to look out for you in the end, I guess. Carmilla's kind of right in what she's been complaining about basically the past series of, what if something happens to you? I'm fucked. And we're starting to already see seeds of that here.
Yeah. And then we get to maybe my favorite storyline.
Oh, yes.
Yes, which I had forgotten for a second was in this. The writer, who we haven't seen in ages. I don't remember the details of what happened, if I'm being honest. Like, do you?
Because he was Chris's sponsor. Then Chris started taking action from him again, gambling. Then he was like, oh, the poker game. It ended with him being deep into Chris. He had to give him his car, and then he was going to rehab, but like he still owed like a bunch of money or whatever. That's kind of where we left it at.
Right. And because he took his car, but like dropped him off and like, call me if you need anything or whatever. Yeah. Like, yeah. So now they show up in like a writing class, and obviously great moment to sort of plant some talk there about like we all mythologize our inner narrative, like basically be us, and yeah, semi throwing digs at writers, which writers love to do. And yes, they just come in and give him a little love tap, drag him out into the car, hilariously demand that he write a screenplay, which is the best thing ever. I love that so much. Is this not the best thing?
It's so perfect, yeah, because Chris has this idea and he's gonna wipe the slate clean if JT Dolan writes the script for him. It's Saw meets Godfather 2. And one of the interesting breakdowns I was reading on this episode kind of points out, I didn't think of it this way, but I guess they hammer it home by the end, is that would Chris go back to this if Tony wasn't in the hospital? Because we've known that, since I think the pilot, Tony has not been about this writing Hollywood type of shit. But now it's almost like Tony's in the hospital for like 2 days. And I mean, Chris does have a lot to work out because he's got Tony in the script for the most part. He's got Adriana in the script, the way he talks about how, his cunt fiance was banging his boss behind his back and he needs to get revenge on everyone. So, I mean, he is working through his stuff, but do you think this is something he'd be pursuing if Tony was not in the hospital?
It's a good question because we don't see anything that directly propels him to do this.
Yeah.
Like, we don't see the inciting incident of this. So he does yell in the car that, like, people are seeing huge profits with these digital horror movies, douchebags who never wrote nothing. And they say, like, that Saw thing, they earned this much worldwide. And, like, I mean, he's not wrong as such, but, I mean, he's obviously wrong. And, yeah, it's interesting because you're right. It probably wouldn't have happened because Tony would have told him to do something. It is kind of really funny if you think about it, that everyone's sort of going like, who's going to be next in line? Who's going to be the big boss? And Christopher's always been like the guy who Tony wants to take over after him. And he's out making a horror film while everyone else is sort of trying to get in there. He's indirectly trying to get out by investing in something that he cares about. And like, it's like you said, he's working through his own feelings, and towards the end, what he says to Tony is that, like, you kind of owe me this because, the whole Adriana thing, like, it's I think that's more telling than anything else, that the rest of it is like Paulie's all about getting as much money as possible. Vito and Bobby, they're both kind of like, maybe I should get more power and run things. Christopher is like, I should make a film. I'm great at films. At least he realized he shouldn't write it. So that's a step in the right direction.
That's some growth. That's some growth for sure.
I want to stay with this storyline for a second because I want to bring up when we get to the meeting later. And my favorite thing about this storyline is that the writer, he's like, obviously, like, this is insane. Like, but then once he starts writing, you can tell that he's kind of into it, and it's like he's pitching it and like, no, we're gonna do it like this, guys. Isn't it cool if this? And like, he's not pretending because he's afraid he doesn't have a gun to his head anymore. He's like, because he's gotten into it. And this reminds me of two things, Jim.
Yes.
One thing is from Jim and Them, which you can find at jimandthem.com, where years ago on the podcast, you came up with the idea that it would be a great business to basically follow people around and threaten to kill them if they don't follow their dreams. You're never going to have writer's block because if you don't write, someone's going to come and kind of shoot at you a little bit. And yeah, a couple of the first clients are going to die because people need to know this business means, it mean business. So it reminded me of that, basically the scene in Fight Club where you like, be a veterinarian, but like you do it in real life and make people write their screenplays and everything. So it reminds me of that. And it also reminds me of a little show called Blank Meets Blank, which you will soon be able to find at showswhatyouknow.com /blank meets blank. It's not up quite yet, but we have recorded a bunch of episodes. What is this show that I'm talking about, Jim? Why would it remind me of this?
I mean, I honestly, I didn't think of it till now, but yeah, he actually does the meets thing as well. They basically, if you think this is kind of fun, this is the show that we've been working on. It's basically this, where Chris pitches the Saw meets Godfather 2, and then they start laying out the plot. And it is great. Like it's a great point too, how he kind of just gets into it because he is a writer. So at the end of the day, like, you're in a room pitching an idea. Given you have to be like, so he's called the Butcher, and then Silvio has to be like, no, he ain't. And I remind you of a friend of ours who this and that. And it's fun that we get to have Lil Carmine's back as well, because he's a hilarious fool, and he gets to bring up like what some other productions that he's been involved in. And even JT kind of like rolls his eyes at that. But yeah, this is all great stuff. And what a great connection to, yes, Blank Meets Blank, coming soon to showswhatyouknow.com.
Yes, that's right. So basically what we do there is, actually, you cut out for a second there, so I didn't hear you, Jim. Maybe you already explained this, but we have two hats, and we draw out two random things, and then we basically do this. We brainstorm the plot of something that has been completely randomized, much like Saw meets Godfather 2. So we've done some the first episode out soon will be Die Hard meets fake news, and then we just make up a whole television show based on that. And much like this writer fellow, it's like, what a crazy idea, but by the end of each episode, I swear we're like, this would actually make sense, like we could sell this.
This is a great idea, great show.
Yes, so it reminds me of both those things. So obviously I really liked this storyline.
Yes, yeah, it's a lot of fun. I've always liked when they've had the Chris being a writer, trying to get into Hollywood stuff. So I welcome it back as kind of another plot line to see throughout the season. So going back to the first scene where they pick up JT, then we have Silvio. We have a shot of just Silvio just kind of hanging out in the ICU, reading the paper like over the counter, like the nurse's counter, like drinking a coffee. And that like you could tell that the nurses are kind of annoyed by these people that kind of keep coming in and out. Carmela's in there with Father Phil and Tony, and I believe she brings him in here. And I would almost think Tony wouldn't want this. Like Tony doesn't want his guys to see him in this state, because you know how the mob is. It's very alpha, and even like Silvio kind of winces for a second because you're seeing. I mean, whether it be your boss or your friend or whatever, someone's in a rough, on a hospital bed, in a coma, tubes and stuff coming out of their mouth, their arms, wherever the fuck. So it's going to be rough to see.
Yeah. Well, Silvio, Silvio bring him in, yeah. But Paulie, and it's it's clear in the text of the show. Paulie's there talking, and it just raises his heart rate, and he's hearing him and banging on the door. That's hilarious. There's a lot of hilarity in here to then turn. I'm just to give a glimpse of the future of the episode here, where the seriousness of the moments before he wakes up, even mixed in with the absurdity of the discussion that's happening and the Buddhist monks and everything, and then when he sees someone who looks a little bit like Olivia and the seriousness of that, it's in such contrast to him banging on the wall and Paulie's there just talking bullshit.
Yeah, it's great. Then we have Vito. Vito's at dinner with Phil, and then we find out he has a connection. I don't know if we've heard this before or not, but we see that his wife is Phil's sister, I believe.
Yes, that's news, I think.
So and Vito's wife is played by Lorraine Bracco's sister as well. That's why she looks so much like Melfi. Very incestuous, whether it be the meta or within the show. And I like this. We start we're getting the vibe that there's unrest in the ranks because Vito's talking to Phil, and it's always kind of a red flag when someone from Jersey is talking kind of out of school to someone from New York. But then even in the midst of it, they're like, what are we talking about? I forget what we're talking about. And then he's like, oh, yeah. Anyways, giving money to Carmela is money down the drain. It's like they kind of even forget their own bullshit in the middle of it.
Yeah, I was almost like, are they trying to intentionally keep it casual? Or are they really just like, wait, what are we doing? Yeah, who cares? I guess I land more on they're both kind of talking about their own bullshit. And so then the other person talks for a bit, and then you're like, wait, what are we talking? Well, let's get back to my bullshit. That's kind of the feeling I got from it.
Yeah. Then we have Paulie icing his balls, and he's complaining about Carmela as well. He calls her the little princess of New Jersey. And then in a hilarious fashion, in the next scene is Paulie again clipping coupons, which is great because it's he just I think they said they cleared $1 million. And even if it's kicking up, even if they split it and then they're kicking up 100 G's. I mean, he's still got a few 100,000, but he's clipping like Band-Aid coupons. And Silvio has to kind of call. Like, I really get the kind of weight and annoyance it would be to be a boss, because all these guys are all about the loyalty, this thing of ours, the family. But if you're not already like solidified as a strong leader, you have to constantly be on people's asses like this, and especially someone like Paulie, because they're always like, oh yeah, of course, I'm on my way to the thing. That's right. Kind of like when Tony was chasing Phil down and he caused that car accident because he needed that. He was trying to get that money from him.
That's right. Yeah, and it's such a Paulie thing to do as well. He's such a unique character at this point. I mean, with the thing of like taking a painting of your boss, I believe he genuinely was like, hey, that's a nice painting. And then like his reaction to having a painting of his boss and like paying over it, that's unique. But then also just small things like, no, he's always going to be clipping coupons. Like he's Scrooge McDuck in a weird way. Like he's going to sit on this in his mattress and he's going to keep being the same stingy weirdo that he is now. Good stuff.
Yeah. Then this is when Carm comes back into the hospital room, and the nurse kind of scolds her for pulling out some of his tubes by laying in bed with him. And I think she just says, oh, that was my daughter. And I feel like, intimacy helps. So there you go. Take that. And she's reading a Sue Grafton book, which I had to look up just because that's what you do when you are discussing Sopranos and do a podcast. It's shit. I had it up a second ago. What was it? It was G for. She writes these like detective books. Oh, G for Gumshoe is the book that she was reading, which is it's the 7th novel in Sue Grafton's Alphabet series of mystery novels. Features Kinsey Milhone, a private eye based in Santa Teresa, California. Kinsey Milhone meets fellow investigator Robert Dietz when someone hires a hitman to kill her. While Kinsey's being stalked, she uncovers an unsolved murder that haunts the lives of her clients, Mrs. Irene Gersh and Irene's mother, whose alias is Agnes Gray. So there you go. That's how it all ties in. That's how it all comes together. Am I wrong, Jacob?
So there's 7 books so far, and it's G for Gumshoe. So there was A for... Well, there's got to be one for every letter, right? So that's... What is A for? I need to know.
Oh, shit. I just had it up. I just closed it.
God damn it, Jim.
Did you think she finished the whole
That's exactly what I need to know now. Like, I know it's not really relevant, but now you started talking about it, and now I want to know. F is for fugitive. Was
A is for alibi, B is for burglar, C is for corpse. She finished. Oh no, she released Y in 2017, so we haven't gotten Z yet. She started in 1982.
Holy shit. She died in 2017. Fuck.
Shut your mouth. Are you kidding me?
No.
So we never got Z?
No. This is terrible. What would it have been? Oh.
Nah, just you have a kid. It's always a famous author's kid's going to come in and write the last one, and it's bad.
Like, yeah, that's true. We get Brandon Sanderson in here. Let's fucking wrap this shit up. I'm just reading the Wikipedia article of Y is for yesterday now. Yeah, sorry.
Oh man, I didn't even realize that. That's kind of a bum out.
It was a bestseller. I mean, not that that necessarily means much, but it was at the top of the list here. So, yeah, I was just looking for if they said something about Brandon Sanderson on here, but it doesn't look like it, Jim. Sorry.
Well, hold on.
Welcome to Cut to Black, a Sue Grafton podcast.
It does mean, will Sue Grafton Z is for Zero ever be published? Because in December 1st, they said they will never be published. But then in January of that year, oh, yeah, forget it. No one cares anymore. But anyways.
This has run its course, much like the Alphabet series. All right, so it's a Gumshoe book. I mean, that's kind of appropriate, I guess.
Yeah.
Who cares? We also go into Tony's mind again. Sorry, Purgatony. #Purgatony.
Yes.
And he's sitting on his bed and talking to his wife, and the doctor said, concussion, don't worry about it. And he finds a thing for a family reunion.
Yes, yeah, for the Finnerty family reunion. Then we kind of check back. He's in the hospital bed. They're still, checking his pupils. Then we get the scene we kind of already went over with the pitch scene with Chris brings JT into a room full of mobsters to pitch this idea for the Saw meets Godfather 2. I do like, what was the original title they had for it? Shit. I mean, Cleaver's great because it's just Saw, but it's Cleaver. So it makes perfect sense.
Yes. So what did he? I almost have it here. He's taking revenge. Like you said, it's like it's Christopher basically. Oh yeah, right now it's called Pork Store Killer.
Yeah,
and I'm thinking
Pork Store Killer.
That was Christopher, and then he had a note and changed it to Cleaver, which is a good name.
Yes, yeah, it's nice and clean. Yeah, because then what happens after this here? Because we kind of already went over this. I do love they call him the butcher. No, they don't. We have Artie shows up at the hospital, and
right.
he's brought some food. Paulie's there talking to Carmilla. As we see throughout this episode, like Paulie and Vito kind of butter up Carm a bit as they're not going to give money to her, or will they? And then in the midst of that, she sees AJ on the TV when he's yelling like "fuck you" or "get the fuck out of here" out the window, and she goes home and like geeks out on him. And I mean, it is pretty mean, but not that AJ doesn't deserve it, but it's like everyone's going through stress right now. She's still his mother, but Edie Falco once again, kind of like you said, carrying this season on her back.
Yeah, I feel like the first scene in the hospital is basically connective tissue to get us to this, to show that she's always there. And then, like they were saying, the Meadow, or I think says it here, that like she was bound to snap, like something had to do it and push her over the edge, and she does. And like you said, pretty mean, like you're a cross to bear, and like actually like hysterically breaking down, and then like also yelling at her own parents. There's a real cross-generational tantrum going on of everyone yelling at everyone, even though she's right and it is obviously upsetting. Like you still feel for AJ when he's like, fuck all of this, and like runs out of there, and you feel for her as well, and she goes and like actually breaks down completely there in her bedroom, crying into a pillow basically. Good stuff. And it's obviously like she needed to get to this breaking point so we can get her into therapy so that she can grow from this. Hashtag Stranger Things 3. Listen to our Stranger Things 3 coverage. Just a bit related there. We just talked about Stranger Things 3, where characters don't change very much.
Don't really change it, bro.
Although David Chase has said that people don't change, so who am I? Who am I to say that characters need to change? But there is growth and change just within this episode in her, because she reaches this breaking point, which we all have to do in order to grow.
Correct. Yes. Then we have Silvio and his wife. His wife's played by his real wife, too. I think we pointed this out before.
Yes.
But then we see Silvio's kind of like, Vito called me Skip. Hey, and it might have been force of habit, but he didn't correct himself. And they're kind of having this similar back and forth they had earlier in the episode of like, oh, maybe, but things, God forbid, maybe I could be the boss. And then Bobby shows up. He still wants a ruling on, it's like the Roseville track or something, basically Junior's previous business, that who's it going to get it? Is it going to be Bobby or is it going to be Vito? Silvio can't quite still make the discussion. And then I think does it immediately kind of cut to the next morning where he's being taken out in a stretcher, or is that later? I forget.
Basically it does. Although here's the thing about it, like Bobby, I mean, it's in Paulie as well, it's in Vito, and it's in all of them, but it's like it really shows what a like spoiled sort of like weird child person all of these mobsters has inside. Like this scene where he's like, I'm going out of my fucking mind here, like 10 minutes from now, I didn't hear anything, Roseville is temporary shit, I don't know. It's like, I guess they're doing this because, like, can you imagine what happened if Bobby talked like this to Tony? Where he's like they're doing it because they can, but just the fact that they think this is the best way of resolving it, and that Silvio isn't putting a stop to it, it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's funny, but it's also just like, fucking tell him to fuck off. Like, he does tell him to calm the fuck down, and like, oh, I have to think, and I have to like, it's clear that making the decision in itself is hard on him, and he's postponing things, but Like there should be like just a reaction to coming here at night, as he says, and like instead he's like almost coughing and having a bit of an attack. It is later. We have the scene with Melfi beforehand, but yeah,
That's
what
right.
a like you just lose
Well,
respect for these gangsters.
and I guess it ties into as well, like why Paulie and Vito can think it's okay to not just deliver the package to Carmilla, like
Yeah.
because of the fact that Silvio's not giving this strong, united, like confident, image. Like, yeah, if this was Tony and someone else, and Tony had made an order, there wouldn't even be talk behind the scenes of like, yeah, but what if? Let's see how this goes. Then, even though Silvio like kind of enjoys the idea of maybe being the boss, he's not projecting the proper image, and that's why things are kind of already going to shit a mere like a few days into it. But yes, and then it goes into the Melfi and Carmela scene, which is a lot of great stuff because it's this constant battle we've seen with Carmilla, and it's always kind of the most important, well, not most important, most interesting part of her character, because it does feel real, this back and forth of like, I know this is a bad situation and I'm kind of profiting off of misery, but then it's like, I love living comfortably and I love, having wealth and, not real worries. I mean, besides maybe we could be killed or my husband will be killed and we could be arrested. But, this has been the constant struggle with her, even going back to one of the memorable moments is when she meets with that rabbi who basically tells her exactly what she needs to do, but it's easier said than done. And now she has more of a kind of acceptance, and she admits that she's kind of always known that, and maybe it's part of what's drawn her in. Very similar to when Lorraine Bracco played Karen in Goodfellas, and she enjoyed when Henry Hill beat the shit out of that guy, pistol whipped him, and then gave her a knife not a knife, a gun to hide. But now it's kind of about the kids, which the kids stuff felt a little late for the show because it seems like they've been adults for a long time. But I guess with everything coming to the surface and being in your face, they're on the news. It does seem like a logical thing she'd have to come face to face with. And if people are complicit in what happens or not, now that they're adults.
AJ is never going to be an adult, Jim. Come on.
Yeah, very true.
But I didn't I didn't have that reaction about them, it being too late. Like her reaction, and maybe I feel like she's felt like this all along, and it's just realizing it now, putting it into words that like the kids don't decide what they're born to, which is so great because it takes everything she just said about like I accept my husband, sort of I accept, like I like that he's a bad person, I like me being with him, but then it's like, but much like Tony, I have my own brand of like inner self-resentment because you wouldn't say that if you actually accepted who you were and who your husband was. You wouldn't say like that your children are worse off having been born to you. So there's still that conflict there of going like they don't decide who they're born to, which is kind of,
well,
I don't know. It's a weirdly heartbreaking line.
Well, it's also pure Carmilla that she then immediately says, like, with all the crooks out there, my husband's not the worst. So even though there's these moments of like clarity and like kind of seeing the bad part of yourself or your life choices, there's still that part that's like, you can debate it within yourself and be like, well, for in the grand scheme of things, what about these fat cats on Wall Street that are ripping off everyone? Like there's always something that you could make it okay in your head.
Yeah, what about all these terrorists, huh? Maybe Christopher will take some of them down and it'll make him feel better about himself. But yeah, she says that the longer the kids stay with them, they become like complicit, which is almost like, so the fight with AJ, it's obviously because she's upset, but it's also like she feels that he's being tainted by proximity, but she's also defending herself internally, and like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting because I think it's like even she can't bring herself to say it, but Melfi's the one that brings up like that they're complicit. And that, I mean, that's, she knows that, but it's one of those kind of going back to just not being able to say it, or even like AJ saying Anthony Soprano and not my father, like just those little self-denials that you have, that everyone has. And then it's a great detail of like going back to when Carmilla gave the speech to Tony when she's playing the song and saying how she loves him, but then okay, if he does make it through this, what if that's not quite as true? Because now it's like we're back in the reality of what our relationship was and what our life is. So yeah, a lot of stuff to unpack, a lot of great stuff going on in this scene.
Yeah. And so I'll breeze through a couple of scenes here because there's some in quick succession, and so that we've already touched on basically all of them. We have Silvio getting wheeled out because he's having like an asthma attack. He can't breathe. I like that we don't see it coming on. We just see the result of him like being wheeled out, and Bobby shows up and he's like, "I didn't hear from you. What are we doing about this division of the thing?" Even though he's being wheeled away. And then we're in the hospital. Vito's making his pitch like, I'm a healthy man and all of that, and talking to Carmilla as well, like being nice but not giving the money, very much not giving the money. And of course she's not like thinking about this at all really in the moment. We have Paulie showing up and his reaction is like, Madon, like this, oh what, like he's obviously over the top, but he does do his best to like have nice banter and a nice chat there, which of course him being him just raises Tony's heart rate.
It's so hilarious because like Meadows giving him the whole spiel of like, hey, it's nice to go in there. They talk, we want to keep things positive. And then he has that great delivery of like, what the fuck? Or like, like it's just immediately like, I can't believe how he looks. And I mean, it is bad timing. They're like draining like fluids from his wound or whatever. And he's in the hospital bed. And yeah, it's hilarious the way Paulie just kind of getting into his life and his random bullshit is spiking Tony's heart rate. And we see Kevin Finnerty, or, the Purgatony, can hear him like muffled through the walls. And he's like, can you shut up in there? He's, banging on the walls, trying to get information about the Finnerty reunion. Speaking of Finnerty, we do see Finn himself in the hospital with Vito, and they still have a nice little back and forth. And I like how even Meadows still kind of like addresses it, like, don't worry about it. It's it's fine. So don't worry about it.
Harmless.
Yeah,
they're all harmless. No one's ever been harmed around here. They all just left.
Yeah, they just left, or they turned state's evidence.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously bad enough what he knows, and then it's like he's trying to be boss now, and then Phineas Fogg shows up.
Phineas Fogg.
Yeah.
But like going back to the question at the beginning when I asked you about the Kevin Finnerty stuff, and yeah, it kind of is worn out its welcome a bit in the beginning of the episode, and the monk stuff is a little whatever. But to me, this scene here, when we're at the Inn at the Oaks, it's perfect. To me, it's great. Yeah. I think it's such a great payoff. It's so creepy. It brings up that tone of the Tony's other dream. We've mentioned it a few times when he goes up to the house and he sees Livia inside. And the way like there's like kind of some Italian music lightly playing, and we're hearing the wind in the trees, and of course like the little Meadow voice, and Tony B, or Steve Buscemi, he's credited as just man in this episode. But like it gives me chills just thinking about it, and the way Gandolfini's playing it, because he does say I'm scared. For some reason I'm scared, and I believe it because he almost is like kind of teary-eyed.
Yeah.
And he's just like asking questions, and he's confused, but he knows like he's being pulled to this place, but he doesn't want to go. I think it's tremendous. I think it's great stuff. I mean, I know your things on dreams, sequences and stuff. What did you take away from this scene here?
No, I think you're totally right. That's why it all makes sense when you look back at the episode and the previous one as a whole. I don't mind them going back to it. That's why I should emphasize again. I was like, at the start of the episode, I was like, fuck this.
Yeah.
This is a fantastic scene and a great way to deliver him back into the real world. And this is where, because, like, most of the time when we're talking about David Chase earlier and, like, it's between heaven and hell, and I'm just thinking about the Buddhists, like, ha ha ha, we're all trees. And I'm like, yeah, sure, David, yeah, sure. But then you're here and it's like, oh, yeah, no, it actually, you do feel that in this scene, definitely. Like, if I just watched this scene and then you asked me, then I'd be like, fuck, shit, I'm going to go pray right now. This is some real spiritual shit going on. And, yeah, he hears Meadow kind of going like, "Don't go, Daddy," because she's there in the room and the wind, and then he does wake up. He decides not to go. Yeah, it's a fantastic scene actually.
Well, and kind of going back into the from the premiere, the Seven Souls montage at the beginning. A lot of people do point out that number 3 in that is the guardian angel, and that's when it shows Meadow, and I guess that kind of ties in here because in a way she kind of brings him back, and just the tension of the scene of like it's two guys like not really fighting, but who's going to get the briefcase and should I bring up the briefcase? But to me it's like so tense of like, oh my god, like don't let go. And the way like Buscemi keeps like looking at it and reaching for it, but not in a like yanking it type of way, but like, oh hey, I'll just take that for you. And then he's, Tony's walking towards the house, but he doesn't let go of it. And then it almost seems like maybe he lets like a few fingers off, and you're like, no, don't do that. It's it's fucking great stuff. And I do have let me go back to the Sopranos sessions real quick where they talk about kind of some of this scene or just in general. They ask him, what did having Junior shoot Tony do for the story? For Tony, for Junior, what did that give you as a writer? And he just talks about, well, it gave us a whole other look at Tony and a whole bunch of different stories that we never would have had. I think the best thing to come out of it was the 2 shows about the alternate universe or whatever you want to call it. Although I shouldn't call it that. It's not a dream, but I guess you could actually say alternate universe. I was really proud of those 2 episodes. We never would have had anything like that, obviously. They also talks about Junior, but and he mentions, John Patterson was sick with cancer. He was dying. We kind of already went over that. And he mentions that, I'd read The Snow Leopard, so a lot of things from that book are in those episodes, like the monks and the Ojibwe saying, which we do see in the scene with Chris. Sometimes I go about in pity for myself, and all the while a great wind carries me across the sky. Now, Alan Sepinwall kind of relates that to, if you look at that saying, it's like a fancy way of saying poor you, which we, as we know throughout the show.
Poor you.
Yeah.
Yes, that's AJ's from last time, right?
Yeah, I finally got AJ's.
Poor you.
But
let's hear them all, Jim.
You want to hear them all?
For this quote. Yes, play them all.
All right.
Oh, poor you.
Oh,
Yes.
poor you.
Oh, poor you.
Poor you.
Yes. Yeah, bingo. Yeah. Go, continue.
But then Chase kind of flips that a bit, and he says, but I take it as a very inspiring, supported statement. Not so much poor you, but the fact that there's some force carrying me across the sky. I really like that thought. And in our house in France, of course, he has a house in France. When I was reading that book, we had a cliff on our property that was about, 200 feet above the river. It was at the top of a mountain or something, and all these nice breezes were coming back and forth. It's like the country, like the woods. The combination of those things is very pungent for me. So yeah, it's just kind of like, especially with Tony. Tony's very much a person that goes about with pity for himself. That's kind of what this whole show's about. But you forget about this, this great force or this, this great wind that carries you across the sky, like the Ojibwe say.
Yeah. The Happy Wanderer might not have as much of a gust in his winds, in his sails. You get it.
Yeah.
And,
so well, in both of these, like the other dream we referenced, such great uses of Livia and how she's still such a great shadow in a way, and Tony and on the show. even not being a physical presence since she was CGI'd on a head in season 3.
Yeah.
But again, I can't speak enough about this scene. Like, it really it almost like got me to well up a little bit. And it's just this like scene of a guy, should he go into this house or not? But obviously there's much more behind it.
Yeah, I think I don't have anything to add because I think you nailed it. We do have a couple of scenes to tie up the episode here. Obviously, he wakes up. Vito's very worried, eating his carrots. Now all of a sudden, him and Polly's like, "Holy shit, we gotta get the money real fast," and they're like allies again. Because before they're kind of like, "Oh no, you take this much, I take that much," and now it's like, "Shit, we gotta get this to Carmilla," and they do, and she sees the look on their faces as they're going away. Which is a great scene, and it's such a great line from her when she's like, "I don't know how you do it," when she comes in there, because he can't talk, he can't do anything, but he still has this aura, this thing that Silvio definitely doesn't have, that makes everyone go like, "Holy shit, we got to get this sorted. He's still alive."
Well, and Paulie's rationale is great because he's like, people have been talking to him. For all we know, he's expecting that money. Like, like someone, like he's in the coma and people are bringing up like, "Oh, we got this great score, T. Don't worry." Like Silvio was in there, like, "Don't worry, we got a nice piece coming to Carmilla," and that's what Polly's worried about. That maybe Tony already knows, and that's again, like in contrast to what they thought of Silvio. Tony is this force. I do want to call out too that Meadow does say when he opens his eyes, "Dad, look, here you are." And I guess that kind of answers his question, like, where am I going? And then even when everyone's happy when they get the announcement that he's awake, we do see Vito that's kind of a little bummed out because it's like he really thought he was going to be the boss. And then plus Tony's comment, like he thinks he's dead. Like he asked Carmilla, like, "I'm dead, right?" And then then we have the scene with Tony and Chris where we get the saying, and it's kind of encapsulates a lot of the episode because it's kind of a selfish thing what Chris is doing because he knows like Tony can't speak or react. So he chooses this moment to be like, I'm going to get back in the movie biz. And then he brings up, you owe me because of the Adriana thing. But Tony, like, he's not there. He's not like in the moment. He's fucking all up on like drugs and painkillers and just waking up out of a coma. So it's great.
Yeah, he's really not present at all, and much like, would he have even done this if Tony wasn't like this? Like you said, it's a great opportunity to do it. Then Carmilla comes in and says, like, I don't know how you do it, and it leaves me like she dabs at his lips with some moisture or whatever. I'm more concerned about Tony in this moment than I was in the last episode. Because last episode, I'm like, he's gonna bounce back, he's fine. And now I'm like, holy shit, Tony does not look right. And I mean, I did think about this previously as well. Are we gonna have a Hank Schrader type, like, I'm gonna be in a wheelchair for a bit, or I'm gonna limp or whatever? And how is this gonna affect the business and the family and the family? Like, I'm thinking about that a bit as the episode wraps up.
Yeah, absolutely. And that moment, you'd already brought it up, but when Vito and Paulie like are giving Carm the fake, like, this is so great, here's the money, this is awesome. And then when she turns back and sees them in the elevator and they're so bummed that they had to they had to give money to her, and that Tony, like, I guess the fact that Tony made it through, that's a bum out for them. It makes complete sense that Carmilla has to marvel at the wonders of Tony Soprano.
Much like AJ might imagine that there's no wall between his parents as far as information because he's on the outside of both of those, it feels like people in his mob family might not be aware that Tony doesn't want Carmilla to have even a fucking $1,000 for whatever. He keeps her on a tight leash, and they're all of a sudden like, shit, Tony would want us to give 100,000 to Carmilla or whatever. Like, no, he actually doesn't want that at all.
Tony's back, but is he back? Is this a different Tony? Tune in to find out.
Ooh, scary. Last episode, I was like, this is definitely gonna happen next time, and then I was totally wrong, so I won't go, Jim, it's clearly not a different Tony, but Guess we're going to find out. What did you think of these episodes? I thought they were a great start to the final season, but let us know what you thought by emailing us at showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com. Once again, showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com. You can also go to our website, showswhatyouknow.com, for coverage on all sorts of shows. How many times can I say shows? Well, I guess we will find out at showswhatyouknow.com. Anything else, Jim?
I guess there's just one more important thing.
Oh, what's that?
Cut to black. Doesn't end there. Now it ends.